Everyone, this is Brian. Brian is our naturopath, and he's been taking care of our office and helping us for what, like?
About 6 months now, I think.
6 months now. I was just looking back. I go, oh my gosh, 6 months. But we've had like awesome relationship in working with our patients. We've had lots of good success, but I brought him here to make sure you guys can understand a little more about how do you naturally help with allergies. Allergy season's coming up. We'll talk a little bit about how your nervous system's important, but more importantly is kind of going through some of the specifics of why allergies happen, and then what some natural things you can do about them, which Brian will probably handle most of that. So we're going to talk about how to lessen these allergy symptoms, but some of the biggest things we're going to do, make sure that we talk about, are going to be that allergies are definitely worse than ever. Since 1990, CO2 levels have been rising. There's been so many more pollutants in our environment. Allergies are just off the charts. So Americans spend up to $18 billion annually on allergy treatments, and it's crazy. And the sad part is what? Are they treating the cause?
No.
Not at all, right?
That's why they're called antihistamines. They prevent the histamine response, but they don't actually get to the underlying root cause.
And the histamine response is a natural response?
It is a natural response, but some of the foods actually contain some of the histamines in them anyway, so the body's going to have to adapt to that as well.
So you're going to be surrounded by histamines in lots of ways, and right now your body's probably producing more than it should, especially if you have allergies, and we're going to try to help teach you naturally how to reduce that load, ultimately. But antihistamines are just blocking your reaction to them, but it's not changing the release of them.
Correct.
In a sense, right? So another thing that we wanted to point out is that your body thinks pollen is a public enemy. Why do allergies happen? Ultimately, we're going to show you a little bit of a diagram, but ultimately, your body is starting to attack anything that it can, and sometimes it gets overwhelmed or confused. What would you say, which as a natural approach to what you've learned with allergies, why does the body seem to have more allergies? Why does everyone seem to have more allergies now than they used to, or something?
From what I've learned in my experience, is it because we're trying to adapt to this new environment? There's certain chemicals and things they're using in the air these days, or on our crops, because as you know, all of my people get a food journal if you come visit with me in the office. So some of the foods that we're eating, so that's where you can look at the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15, which they update about every 6 to 9 months. So those Dirty Dozen, those are the 12 heavily laden pesticides, fruits and vegetables that you need to buy organic. And the Clean 15, it doesn't matter, you can buy those conventionally. So some of those chemicals our body's not used to having, or we're not used to having long-term exposure to. So as a result, it causes the physiology to change, and hence why we started implementing even the genetic test here sometimes in the office.
Why we even talk as a chiropractor, why are we talking about allergies, is number one is that if your nervous system is miscommunicating, then your nervous system and immune system are intricately connected. There's a whole study. It's a neuroimmunology. That study is having an understanding that if your nervous system isn't properly functioning and communicating, then you're going to have a challenge, a roadblock, or a dysfunction. It would be similar to understanding that if you were in a Wi-Fi zone in the house, but you went downstairs and your Wi-Fi was kind of faulty, or you had a low signal, and you didn't, if you're watching a video, it buffered, it would kind of what did I just miss? That's your body. Right. It's missing little bits of information that could become into a bigger problem, right? But your body's always sending signals. It's trying to tell us things.
Exactly.
We're going to let Brian kind of take a hold here, but I just, when it comes, we're always talking about a whole body approach, and that whole body approach is going to make sure that you understand there's so many factors to trying to get your body to work well, and some of those definitely are always they come down to stress at times. They're going to come down to the foods you're eating, the hydration. There's some basic things that you might think we sometimes we assume people just know, and truly they can be basic things that you start. So this is why we talk about eat well, move well, think well every workshop, because there's one day I'm going to say it and some light will turn on and you go oh my gosh, I haven't drank water in days, or I just had coffee, or whatever it is, or oh yeah, my stress is out the roof. Maybe that's why these things won't stop. Right. I'm going to let Brian kind of take a little bit more of the reins here.
So what happens is that Doc mentioned there's the stressors that we have, or different types of stress. We all have them today. If you have stress, there's 3 types: physical, chemical, and emotional. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, he's going to talk about the structural side of things. Like for instance, if I was out lifting weights or whatever and I screw up my back, or trying to lift firewood, Doc can adjust me to relieve that physical part of it. The chemical part's what I also then focus on, which is why I look at the food journals. That's why everybody gets a food journal, because some of those chemicals or toxins, as Doc mentioned, we might be putting in, we're just putting in coffee. We forgot to drink water. Well, then do we have enough minerals to hold that water in solution in the cell? So, but what happens is when we get exposed to some of these things, we can breathe them in our lungs, these toxins that were coming in. Our skin, which is our largest organ that we have, can be exposed to these things. Then it can cause an irritant. You get a little red spot or a little blotch. People that are allergic to poison ivy, this happens with that. It's an allergy to poison ivy, because there's other people that I know that can roll around in it and they don't have an allergic response. Why? They don't have it. So their body creates enough, it can deal with that immune response or that histamine response and deal with it, and it's not an allergy to them. So, and then the chemical, we talked about the food. So what happens is when we ingest some of this stuff, that this histamine storm can cause, and the liver has to clear all of this. So, and this is why you see this slide works really well this way, that what are we taking in? Or is it an antigen? The rashes, we're getting the runny nose, the watery eyes. So, that kind of stuff. These are all the symptoms that we have when we take in allergens that we're unaware of.
The mast cell, I just wanted, so the cell in our body that typically is releasing histamine is this mast cell, correct?
Right, and so they can be in the GI tract, they can be in our lungs, they can be in our skin. This is what happens. You get overwhelmed with it and the body says, oh no, look, here it is. So, and it'll tell you which area it is. So that's why a lot of times those of us that have a gluten sensitivity, it's producing them here in the GI tract, hence we get bloated, or hence we have a lot of maybe gas or something of that nature. Celiac is a whole other animal in itself, but I know myself, being a pastitarian, as I mentioned, or Italian, I actually have a gluten intolerance. I can tolerate some. That doesn't mean I'm going to go to Olive Garden and get all you can eat, but I can go in and tolerate some. But I've now learned how to counteract that, and I know how because I have enough tools, if you will, in my arsenal, I can actually go eat some of that stuff and not have an issue with it. So, okay, so these are the different things then, like we talked about then. So there's hives, rashes, eczema, believe it or not. So a lot of times you see the medications on TV, like Skyrizi or Humira or something. So if you find me for one of these skin issues like this, I tell people I need 90 days. Need at least 90 days to make some kind of an impact in this. So, but that's, when people come to, because I've had people find me for eczema and we don't see a drastic change or result till after about 2 months. So just FYI. So these are some of the things that you might see when you walk in the door, or if I was to do a consult with you. This is one of the digestive products I use. I'm a big fan of digestion. If you ask anybody that's worked with me in the office, or even Doc, he's been to a couple other, that's actually how I first met him, believe it or not. We've been to some seminars together, and so I'm a huge fan of supporting the digestive system, because I feel if you get the digestion right, a lot of these other things will take care of themselves. And not to mention, if you're eating a really good, clean, organic diet, you have to be able to digest and assimilate what you're putting in, and then that way it can go and be utilized accordingly. And this product here actually has something in it called Trifala or Trifala, and it's actually great for the liver. It's great for healing up the GI tract. The Trifala has a property similar to okra in it, so this is a great product to use for digestion.
These things are very, very helpful. I know you've been so big at, I think just giving some people support for their digestion have helped them adjust so much better. And I think that a root of a lot of chronic inflammation does seem to start in the gut. And I can't tell you, I think you said the gut and hormones, if you can balance those, you're going to get 90% success for a lot of people.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
So, but the gut is where a lot of mast cells are, correct? Mm-hmm. So these mast cells that create a lot of histamine do live in the gut.
Yeah.
And so why would the gut, what happens in the gut that causes those mast cells to be
So your GI tract is 30 foot long, believe it or not. That tube that's in there, that's called the small intestine, is about 30 feet. Well, maybe from beginning from duodenum to colon, the end of the colon there. So that's about 30 foot long. So you have to be able to digest and absorb this stuff. So your lungs then are a mucosal lining, but the GI tract is still the bigger issue. So then when you put these foods that are irritants in there, this is where that dysfunction, as Doc was talking about, comes into play. It probably might throw out, say, T6 or maybe L4. So he's going to have to adjust those areas. That's why he may do side posture on you or something of that nature.
Yeah. And these products are trying to help reheal that lining.
Correct.
And cause your body so they can assimilate this food rather than react to it. Because the mast cell's reaction to certain foods that it sees as foreign is going to create more histamine. So, and there's food you could eat, like you just said, that has histamine already, and it is histamine,
right?
Correct?
Yeah.
So that is already put in your body. So you got to try to limit how that flows in. Just like you want to limit how quick sugar gets into your blood, you definitely want to limit the foods you're eating that have histamine.
Yep. Yeah. So this is another product here. This one is my fan favorite so far. This is the one that like I said, if I went to the Olive Garden, or in my case being Italian, my Nonna's house, there's my aunt who gives me a chunk of lasagna, not a piece. So I take some of this when I go into our house. I was there at Christmas time, and I'm not gonna say I chow down and go hog wild, but I can eat what's put on my plate. We'll put it that way. So this is great for those gluten sensitivities. So this is actually high in something called DAO, which stands for diamine oxidase. So this actually helps quell that mast cell response that we're talking about. So one kind of heals the GI tract, the other one kind of helps to quell that mast cell response.
Does it act kind of like an antihistamine, or is it just does it prevent the mast cell from releasing histamine?
Yeah.
So antihistamine is going to say, well, the mast cells can do whatever they want. We're going to stop the body reacting to the histamine, where this product is going to say, hey, mast cell, it's okay. You don't have to go crazy and release all the histamine.
Right.
So we're working more at the root of that connection of the cell. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that enzyme that you need to be able to process it so that way it's not produced. So histamine scavengers. So now this product is different. This is for the environmental allergies. We've actually had we've had a few little inklings of spring, we'll say, in early spring. So as a result, the buds and the pollen will start flowing here pretty soon. So this is for your environmental allergies. There's two different products that we have that we use for this. So as you see, one is for the GI tract. We start with the GI tract, and the other one, this is for our environmental. I've had some people take up to 9 or 12 of these a day. So we can just increase them as needed. Typically just 1 or 2, maybe 3 is for prevention, but we can dose accordingly depending upon what the case is.
What just reminded me of something. So we get a lot of patients in, and I'll give them the collagen complex or different things, and I go like, you can take like 6 or more of these a day if you're really having a flare up, and their like eyes get like this big, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, how is this going to interact with you? Like, I think a lot of patients, even still, when they take something off our shelf and natural products, still kind of think medicine. Help explain just a little bit how these things, like anything that we're really giving them, is more food based to some degree, and how you can take 12 and be, it's different than taking whatever. Just explain that, because I think that's helpful for everyone.
Absolutely. So what happens is what I tell people, when you have you dose dependently of the situation. Like for instance, Doc, you talked about the collagen complex. I broke some ribs a couple of years ago. Instead of taking just 3, which is what the recommended RDA is on the bottle, I took 9. Okay, and I did that for about 2 weeks. Next thing you know, I can go sleep on my right side. My broken ribs were actually not as sore, not as tender. But so then what it is you have to give what I call a therapeutic physiological changing dose of whatever that nutrient is to that organ, system, or gland. So at times this, like I said, the 1 or 2 may not cut it. That may deal with, say like right now with the way the weather's been, say it gets all of a sudden really, really warm. We get a really nice week of warm weather, and all of a sudden the trees are just blooming. You go out to your car and it's covered in yellow or white, whatever it is, and you're just sneezing, runny nose, constant. You're like, oh, I can't breathe. Maybe you're having a little bit of a pseudo asthma attack because of all the pollen, because it's a histamine for yourself. So then we can just dose accordingly. But that doesn't mean you stay there. You just dose accordingly to help quell that response to that organ, system, or gland, and give that therapeutic dose. Histamine balancer. This is the liquid version. So sometimes young adults or children have an issue with swallowing capsules and that. So we actually use this product then in place of it. It has a little bit of overlap with the histamine scavenger. Sometimes I have used them together in some cases, because sometimes it's hard to walk around with a bunch of pills. These are the homeopathics are actually in just a nice little spray bottle, or a nice little bottle that you can take with you. They're easier to travel with than the capsules, or this big bottle of capsules, and have to remember to take some of them. So the pollen and dander liquescence. This one is great for that animal dander if you happen to be allergic to cats. My son is. So my son, he's got a new girlfriend, so she does have a cat. So I've given him this to take before he goes over to the girlfriend's house. But anyway, the pollen and dander one does work, and it's great for those animal, like you said, the dog, cat allergies. Also good for the environmental stuff as well. So homeopathic remedies themselves, though, we have a line called Allersodes, and this substance can actually, if you look at it, it says substances which can induce the formation of antibodies in sets of individuals. So these Allersodes are actually giving you what you're actually allergic to and quelling that response. So the body's that innate intelligence that your body's talking about, we're contacting the vagus nerve with these homeopathics. So whenever you dose a homeopathic, we don't have anything in our mouth for 15 minutes afterwards. That way it has time to take effect and get into the physiology. So, and the Allersodes are actually just that. As you see, they include household dust, mold, animal hair, dander, trees, grass, poison ivy, oak. So that actually helps to reduce the sensitivity by doing that. So Allersodes are a really, really cool thing to use, and they're kind of specific for what you have going on.
You said the word quell. What do you mean by that? Like what's going on?
It's kind of like putting the fire out.
Okay.
Say I went to Pizza Hut and I decided to have a whole personal pan pizza. Okay, well that's going to cause a lot of inflammation. You need to put the fire out. Mm-hmm. If I forgot to take my ABP1 assist, or histogun as it's called, I'm going to have to use something else that I have in my arsenal to be able to quell that response. Well, that's how you can do that.
Our bodies love rhythm. And so people, we would all love a magic bullet. We love to say, well, what's that one supplement that will help me lose all my weight, give me all my energy, and I'll never get old. Or, doc, what's that one vertebrae you've got to hit to do this thing? Holistic and natural treatment takes time, number one. When we can blend the science and wisdom together, we can start to get further in what we're doing. And that's why I keep trying to bring more of those things together for you guys. But you still understand that the consistency is key, and rhythm. And if you're taking a supplement, yeah, you're going to have rhythm. I mean, people go, I'm so bad at those. Well, we're so bad at so many things, but if you're really going to get good at this, you're going to have to up your intensity of being regular with them. And how are you going to plan to succeed? But the key here is that we want you to have a benefit in many ways. And I love that you can learn from more than just me. All right. Well, thank you, Brian, for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Fun time.
All right, guys. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.